सभी को नमस्कार। शिक्षक पर्व के अवसर पर आज आज हमारा टेक्निकल सेशन का शुरुआत हो रही है। इसमें माननीय शिक्षा राज्य मंत्री श्रीमती अन्नपूर्णा देवी जी का हार्दिक स्वागत करता हूं। इस टेक्निकल सेशन में हमारे साथ स्कूल एजुकेशन एंड लिटरेसी डिपार्टमेंट के सेक्रेटरी श्रीमती अनीता करवाल, डायरेक्टर एनसीईआरटी श्री प्रोफेसर श्रीवास्तव मौजूद हैं। इस टेक्निकल सेशन के चेयरमैनशिप माननीय श्री के कस्तूरी रंगन जी कर रहे हैं, जो हमारे एनईपी ड्राफ्टिंग कमेटी के भी चेयरमैन रह चुके हैं। उनका हार्दिक स्वागत है। हमारे 3 स्पीकर इस सेशन में ज्वाइन कर रहे हैं। प्रोफेसर जे.एस. राजपूत, फॉर्मर डायरेक्टर एनसीईआरटी, डॉक्टर अरुणाव सिंह, डायरेक्टर नेहरू वर्ल्ड स्कूल गाजियाबाद, डॉक्टर अनंता ज्योति, प्रिंसिपल ऋषि वैली स्कूल आंध्र प्रदेश, एंड मिस सुधा पाइनोली, वाइस प्रिंसिपल एकलव्य मॉडल रेसिडेंशियल स्कूल। सभी का हार्दिक स्वागत है। और हमारे साथ जितने लोग जुड़े हैं, शिक्षक, स्टूडेंट्स और अदर स्टेक होल्डर्स, एनसीईआरटी के स्टाफ्स और विभिन्न ऑटोनोमस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन स्टाफ, सब लोगों को स्वागत है। आज का जो थीम है क्वालिटी एंड सस्टेनेबल स्कूल्स, लर्निंग फ्रॉम स्कूल्स ऑफ इंडिया, ये थीम पे हम लोग आज बातचीत कर रहे हैं। और इस पर मैं आग्रह करूंगा ऑनरेबल मिनिस्टर ऑफ स्टेट फॉर एजुकेशन श्रीमती अन्नपूर्णा देवी जी को अपना संबोधन रखने के लिए।
धन्यवाद। सभी को नमस्ते। आज शिक्षक पर्व के अवसर पर सबसे पहले सभी शिक्षकों को अपनी ओर से शुभकामना देती हूँ। साथ ही साथ इस पर्व में, शिक्षक पर्व में उपस्थित आज के इस कार्यक्रम में टेक्निकल सेशन में उपस्थित अनीता करवाल जी, सचिव स्कूली शिक्षा और साक्षरता विभाग, राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति के प्रारूप तैयार करने वाले अध्यक्ष डॉक्टर कस्तूरी रंगन जी और अन्य एक्सपर्ट श्री जे.एस. राजपूत जी, श्री डॉक्टर अरुणाव सिंह जी, डॉक्टर अनन्य ज्योति जी और श्रीमती सुधा जी, तथा सेमिनार से जुड़े सभी शिक्षाविद, शिक्षकगण और प्यारे छात्रों। आज हम सभी यहाँ पर बहुत ही सम्मानीय शिक्षक पर्व के अवसर पर उपस्थित हैं और आप सबको शिक्षक पर्व की बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं भी देते हैं। वास्तव में शिक्षक दिवस और शिक्षक पर्व हमें अपने शिक्षकों को उनके द्वारा प्रदत्त ज्ञान एवं प्रशस्त करने के लिए आभार प्रकट करने का अवसर होता है। हमारे यशस्वी और दूरदर्शी प्रधानमंत्री जी की पहल से जो शिक्षक पर्व मनाया जा रहा है, उसमें शिक्षा से जुड़े अनेक पहलुओं पर विचार करते हुए हम अपनी शिक्षा व्यवस्था को सर्वोत्तम बनाने का संकल्प और माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के संकल्प से सिद्धि की अवधारणा का प्रतिपालन करते हुए आत्मनिर्भर भारत का स्वप्न साकार करना सुनिश्चित करेंगे। इसी दिशा में राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति 2020 ने भी शिक्षा की गुणवत्ता बढ़ाने पर विशेष जोर दिया है। गुणवत्तावरक शिक्षा के अनेक पहलू होते हैं। छात्रों को केवल विषय का ज्ञान दे देना ही पर्याप्त नहीं है, बल्कि उनके व्यक्तित्व का विकास ये महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका निभाता है और व्यक्तित्व का सर्वांगीण विकास सुनिश्चित करना ही आज की आवश्यकता है। राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति में टेक्नोलॉजी का लाभ उठाने के महत्व पर विशेष जोर दिया जा रहा है और मेरा मानना है कि बदलती परिस्थिति में और दिन प्रतिदिन बदलती तकनीक की दुनिया के साथ चलने के लिए अत्यंत आवश्यक है। शिक्षा में एक जीवंत डिजिटल इकोसिस्टम छात्रों के लिए शिक्षण के अवसरों का विस्तार करने के साथ साथ शिक्षा क्षेत्र में नवाचार और उद्यमिता को भी बढ़ावा देगा। प्रौद्योगिकी के उपयोग से शिक्षा क्षेत्र में नवाचार और उद्यमिता को भी बढ़ावा देगा और एक खुली, समावेशी और सुलभ शिक्षा के लक्ष्यों को प्राप्त करने में मदद करेगा। कोविड-19 महामारी ने शिक्षा के डिजिटल माध्यम में बदलाव को आवश्यक बना दिया पीएम ई विद्या और एनडीआर जैसे पहल बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है, जो निश्चित रूप से गुणवत्तावर्ग शिक्षा के हमारे लक्ष्य के लिए सहायक होंगे। डिजिटल तकनीक और आईसीटी बेस्ड तकनीक के माध्यम से हम शिक्षा को देश के सभी बच्चों तक पहुंचा सकते हैं। आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस, रोबोटिक्स जैसी तकनीक का प्रयोग संभावनाओं के नए द्वार खोलेंगे। शिक्षा की निरंतरता सुनिश्चित करने के लिए मंत्रालय द्वारा शुरू की गई डिजिटल पहलों को और अधिक मजबूत तथा संस्थागत बनाया जाएगा। सभी को शिक्षित करने की एक बड़ी जिम्मेवारी हम सब पर है, जिसके लिए निरंतर प्रयास करने की आवश्यकता है और वयस्कों के सीखने के लिए गुणवत्तापूर्ण टेक्नोलॉजी आधारित विकल्प जैसे ऐप्स, ऑनलाइन मॉड्यूल, उपग्रह आधारित टीवी चैनल, ऑनलाइन पुस्तकें और आईसीटी से सुसज्जित पुस्तकालय और प्रौढ़ शिक्षा केंद्र आदि विकसित किए जाएंगे। किसी भी राष्ट्र का आर्थिक, सामाजिक, सांस्कृतिक विकास उस देश की शिक्षा पर निर्भर करता है। अगर राष्ट्र की शिक्षा नीति अच्छी है और सभी हितधारक उसके अनुसार कटिबद्ध प्रयास करें, तो उस देश का उत्तरोत्तर विकास अस्वयंभावी है। सभी को अच्छी शिक्षा देकर हमें उनकी प्रतिभा और क्षमताओं का अधिकतम उपयोग सुनिश्चित करना होगा, ताकि हम माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के नए भारत के निर्माण की प्रतिबद्धता को गति प्रदान कर सके। शिक्षा केवल शिक्षित ही नहीं बनाती, बल्कि राष्ट्रीय और चरित्र निर्माण का ये एक महत्वपूर्ण पहलू है और एक ऐसे चरित्र का निर्माण करता है जो आदर्श, जीवन मूल्यों और मानवीय संवेदनाओं पर टिका हो, देश को समर्पित हो और मानवता एवं वैश्विक सोच से परिपूर्ण हो। वैश्विक नागरिक तैयार करने की परिकल्पना को सामने रखकर ही हमारी राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति का स्वरूप तैयार किया गया है और हम सबको मिलकर इसे धरातल पर लाना होगा और हम उस युग की तरफ बढ़ रहे हैं जहां कोई भी व्यक्ति जीवन भर किसी एक पेशे में टिका नहीं रहेगा। उसके लिए उसे निरंतर खुद को रीस्किल और अप स्किल करते रहना होगा, जिसके लिए प्रत्येक छात्र को सक्षम बनाने की आवश्यकता है और शिक्षा व्यवस्था ऐसी होनी चाहिए जो प्रत्येक बच्चे की क्षमता, योग्यता, आशाओं और खूबियों के अनुरूप उसे निखारने का काम कर सके, जिससे बच्चे खुशी खुशी विद्यालय आएं, गुरु और शिष्य साथ साथ सीखें, विभिन्न स्थानीय व्यवसायों, खेल, संस्कृति और शिल्प आदि के अवलोकन से सीखने को प्रोत्साहन दिया जाए। समुदाय के सदस्यों को शिक्षा में योगदान के लिए महत्वपूर्ण प्रोत्साहित किया जाना चाहिए। हमें सीखने का एक संपूर्ण वातावरण बनाना है जिससे शिक्षा अनुभव आधारित एवं प्रासंगिक बन सके और राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति में बहुत विस्तृत ढंग से बच्चों की शिक्षा अच्छी कैसे हो, बच्चों अपने समझ के अनुसार वो कैसे आगे बढ़े, इस दिशा में काफ़ी बल दिया गया है। क्वालिटी और सस्टेनेबिलिटी अलग अलग न होकर एक ही सिक्के के दो पहलू हैं, जहां एक और सभी बच्चों को उसकी योग्यता और क्षमता पहचान कर शिक्षा सुनिश्चित करना महत्वपूर्ण है, वहीं दूसरी ओर इसे बदलते समय और बदलती परिस्थितियों के साथ समयानुकूल बनाए रखना भी जरूरी है। आज इस शिक्षक पर्व में मैं पुनः सभी को धन्यवाद देती हूँ। साथ ही आज का ये जो विषय है आज टेक्निकल सेशन में जो विचार विमर्श होंगे, इस विचार विमर्श के माध्यम से हमें लगता है जो अनुभवी और विद्वान शिक्षाविदों का पैनल है, मैं ये आशा करती हूँ कि आज के इस मंथन से, विचार से क्वालिटी और सस्टेनेबिलिटी को अच्छी तरह से समझने के लिए इन तत्वों को अपनी शिक्षा व्यवस्था में समाहित करने के लिए एक अच्छा निर्णय निकल कर आएगा। एक हम कह सकते हैं कि अमृत निकल कर आएगा और इससे शिक्षा व्यवस्था को, शिक्षा जगत को बहुत ही लाभ मिलेगा। और जो आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी की जो सोच है, जो प्रधानमंत्री जी की चिंता है, शिक्षा व्यवस्था को बेहतर, सुदृढ़ और मजबूत करना, और इस अभी अमृत महोत्सव जो हम मना रहे हैं, निश्चित रूप से इस अमृत महोत्सव में भी हम कैसे बच्चों को इस शिक्षा व्यवस्था की ओर उन्हें अग्रसरित करें, ये इस आज के विचार मंथन से निकल कर आएगा। तो मैं पुनः आप सभी को अपनी ओर से हार्दिक धन्यवाद देते हुए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। जय हिंद।
Thank you very much, madam, for setting the context for today's technical session. Education as the basis for character building, education as the basis for holistic personality development, and education as the basis for lifelong learning are the themes that you emphasized upon. And sincere thanks to you for gracing this occasion and setting the tone for this technical session. I would now take this opportunity to invite Dr. K. Kasturi Rangan to kindly give his introductory remarks. Dr. Kasturi Rangan.
Thank you, Chairperson, for your very thoughtful remarks. We all heard you with rapt attention on the importance of the remarks that you have made in the context of implementing the various aspects of the national education policy. I would like to congratulate the Department of School Education and Literacy of the Ministry of Education for having organized this Shikshak Parv 2021 Conclave with the most timely and appropriate theme, quality and sustainable schools, learning from schools in India. I'm indeed proud to see the Honorable Prime Minister himself has chosen to address this conclave, thus setting the tone for the deliberations in the coming days. I was, in a sense, very, very happy to see certain initiatives being launched as a part of the inaugural address of the Honorable Prime Minister. And these items of the initiatives certainly respect key blocks in the policy framework, and moving them forward through launching this through the announcement of the Honorable Prime Minister gives tremendous impetus to many elements of this particular policy in terms of finding real actions on the ground. So we are all very happy to hear the Honorable Prime Minister on this, and followed by the Honorable Chairman here of this session. I had the good fortune of meeting the Honorable Minister of Education, Dr. Dharmendra Pradhanji, also soon after he took over his new responsibility. It gave me a tremendous sense of satisfaction to hear his clear elucidation of the steps that he proposes to take in the context of progressing the implementation of NEP 2020. We had a fairly good session we discussed the various aspects of the NEP implementation. And he had already covered quite a bit of ground in the short period that he was in charge of this the responsibility. And I could see the enthusiasm with which we discussed and the kind of anxiety with which he wanted to look at this to move it forward. I should also say I have been time and again briefed regarding the various steps being taken for transforming school education in consonance with the letter and spirit of the NEP by Srimati Anita Karwalji, the dynamic and visionary Secretary of the School Education. I would like to congratulate you, Sri Kanwalji, for this tremendous effort you have put in the last one and a half years. I've been keeping track of it, and thank you very much for keeping me informed of the enormous documentation that you have produced. I think what really shows the amount of work that has gone into it, the preparations that have gone into it, and fully geared for implementing, and many elements of the implementation also finding now the right places in terms of the progress. It's my proud privilege to chair this first technical session immediately following the Prime Minister's speech that gives an overarching scope of the entire conclave that has 9 themes already identified, spread over the next 11 days. The National Education Policy 2020 has a horizon of 20 to 25 years with a clear transformational approach to Indian education. That implies also that it directly confronts some of the most fundamental challenges in the Indian education. It does so in a very realistic manner by prioritizing the most urgent challenges such as basic literacy and numeracy, improvement in teacher education and undergraduate education, while driving structural change for the long term. The pandemic has caused severe and long-term disruption to the entire education system. Disruptions are often harmful, and it will take years of sustained effort to counteract the learning losses suffered by crores of students over the last 16 months or so. Despite their harmful effects, there can be some silver linings, especially when disruptions force us to address underlying issues of quality and sustainability. Many of these issues will be addressed by the speakers at today's session, and we look forward to hearing some of the best practices coming out of their own experiences in dealing with them. I will focus on 4 issues and their importance in hardening the educational system's resilience to disruptions. The first issue relates to the foundational literacy and numeracy. In DP 2020, sharp focus on this issue is exactly the priority that will have to be executed rigorously to ensure that the students have the necessary foundation for the recovery of lost learning. Further, it's possible that some of these losses can be kept to a minimum with the use of technology tailored for this purpose. For instance, technology that is widely today can be deployed at scale to provide students with drill and practice problems to maintain their basic proficiency in language and numeracy. The second issue relates to community engagement and support for ensuring that all children remain in schools and do not drop out of the school because of disruptions. Community engagement will also contribute to development and adoption of context-specific sustainability practices in schools. The third issue is curricular transformation. NEP 2020 commits to making the curriculum much more meaningful while making it less burdensome for students by focusing on development of fundamental capacities rather than excessive content load. Such a curriculum can ensure the efforts of recovery from disruptions are focused on genuine learning and real capacities rather than merely recalling or processing information. We must keep it in mind that such skills, while essential in moderation, are increasingly irrelevant in the world where computing systems can recall and process information more effectively than humans. The fourth and the most important issue relates to NEP 2020's unambiguous placement of the teacher as central to education. This can form the basis both for the recovery of lost learning and the long-term transformation of our education system with focus on quality and sustainability. Among the many important recommendations made in the context of making teacher education central to the considerations of quality, reliability, and sustainability, some of the more important recommendations in NEP 2020, effective teacher recruitment and deployment, school environment and culture that is conducive to quality education, continuous professional development, career development, and approach to teacher education. Similar considerations also influence NEP's recommendation on school complexes that will help to make up for the deficiencies and suboptimal characteristics of the present school education, including the number of students, the breadth of subjects, and the availability of resources, including teachers for various subjects. The quest for quality and sustainability has been a persistent challenge that we have been facing with regard to schools. Learning from the schools of India has 2 components. One component is the challenge from the pandemic, which we have already discussed, and the other is the long-term challenge coming out of several types of methods and practices which we need to revisit in the context of quality and reliability. Even though it is not possible for me to delineate in a short time several of these causative factors, I would like to point out an important issue. There is no one person or a group of people who have any sense of ownership of a government school. Many of the government officials at different levels, such as state, districts, etc., are transferred regularly. Political leaders change frequently. Principals and teachers are also transferred often, which means that there is no one invested in working steadily towards the long-term goals of building up quality in a particular school and sustaining it over a long period of time. Therefore, instituting processes to ensure the continuity of interventions in government schools and getting everyone involved to commit to this method of working could be one of the ways to overcome the constant upheavals that arise due to widespread changes in the system. The 9 themes of this conclave have been very carefully chosen, have been very thoughtfully selected, addressing the multiple dimensions of the issues of quality and sustainable schools. I am sure that the presenters and speakers today and all the webinars to follow will have a lot to say about the quality and sustainability of schools from their rich experience in running some of the most well-known institutions in the country. I'm sure the outcome of this series will have significant influence of the strategy for implementation of NEP 2020 in the immediately as well as in the years to come. Thank you for this opportunity. I would like to, at this stage, would the presenter would like to say something before I go to the main program?
No, sir, we can start.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
I have a program which starts with the presenter, Professor J.S. Rajput, who is a former director of the NCERT. I should say a few words about Professor Rajput. Professor J.S. Rajput is known for his contributions in reforms in school education and teacher education. His research publications in physics earned him a professorship at the age of 31 years. Assignments held by him include principal of the Regional Institute of Education in Bhopal, appointed by Joint Educational Advisor to the Ministry of Human Resource Development, and finally the director of the NCERT between 1999 and 2004. He also served as chairperson, National Council for Teacher Education, NCT, during 1994 to 1999. He has, of course, published a number of books, and he has also won several awards. He is the recipient of Janamos Commerce Award of the UNESCO, Maharshi Vedavyas National Award for the Government of Madhya Pradesh, Pandit Madan Mohan Malaviya Award of the Kendriya Hindi Samsthan, etc. And he received the Padma Shri in 2015. Presently, he is the representative of the Executive Board of the UNESCO since March 2018 for the next 4 years. In November 2018, he was elected chairperson, governing board of the Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Education for Peace and Sustainable Development. I should add to this the fact that when we wanted to have a peer review of the entire policy in the draft form, we selected some very eminent educationists to go through it carefully and give us the feedback as peer reviewers. Somebody who has not had a direct role in the preparation of the document on the policy, but who can take an independent view. So Professor Rajput served as one of the peer reviewers, give us very, very valuable inputs from his experience. And so I'd like to mention this at this point. May I have the opportunity to invite Professor Rajput to make his presentation.
Thank you, Professor Kasurirangan. Extremely grateful to you, sir, for the kind words. Esteemed Minister, Anitaji, distinguished teachers colleagues and friends. What the Prime Minister has said this morning and what the Honorable Minister said and the learned words of Professor Kasturi Rangan say it all. Listening to them, I recalled Dr. Radhakrishnan. Education is a universal right, not a class privilege. He said it some more than 80 years ago. The world has accepted, and we have reached around a 90% literacy rate somewhere. But there are children outside school. And there are more children in schools who are unlearning, who are not learning at all. And these are tough groups. We have to work much more than we had done earlier, globally and within the country. India has started after independence to focus on access, creating more schools, appointing more teachers. Then after a couple of years, we realized that mere enrollment is not sufficient. We must ensure the child participates. Then several issues came up. Why the children leave? And there were many studies, many researches. NCERT came in the picture. And then by 1986 policy, we were focusing on access, participation, and attainments. Now, with the experience gained over the last more than 3 decades, we have come to realize what quality really means and what will be the import of quality in the next, say, 20 years or 30 years, 40 years, when these young children in schools today shall be in the working life. I think my focus would go to teachers. And policy says teachers shall be re-established. That I think is the first major component. And how shall they be re-established? Swami Ranganathanand once addressed a group of teachers and said, a teacher transforms an innocent individual, a person, into a personality. व्यक्ति को व्यक्तित्व में बदल दे। कुल मिलाकर सारा गुणवत्ता की बात हो रही है, कौशलों की बात हो रही है, जितनी भी बातें हैं एक वाक्य में आ जाती हैं, व्यक्ति को व्यक्तित्व में बदल। And the same thing comes when you see the logo of the NCERT which says Guru Gurtamo Dhamma. The teacher takes the learner from humanity to divinity. इतने बड़े लक्ष्य, and therefore the focus shall be the teachers, teacher education, and we should really be grateful to the committee headed by Dr. Kasturi Rangan, which says no more teachers with 1 year period. Now all of them will go for 4-year duration course. This is how quality will come up. Quality will also be established. Sustainability will be established if we continuously remember in our schools Gandhi, who gave us a 3x3 matrix, that is to draw the best out of head, hand, and heart, or body, mind, and spirit, or you can state self, society, and nature. Every teacher education institution, every curriculum developer has to learn these things. They will give sustainability. Dr. D.S. Kothari, nobody can forget him, what he had done in the policy planning in this country. He was the first person who made it compulsory for the girls also to study mathematics and science up to class 10. If that was not there, many girls were deprived of reading science and mathematics. But that's a different story. When somebody asked around 1988 to Dr. Kothari, sir, if you become the chairman of the National Commission, again, what changes will you make? And Dr. Kothari said, I will change the title of my report. As we know, the original title was Education for National Development. And after 25 years, the chairperson says, I should have made the title Education for Character Building. That is value education. That is personality development. That is humanity to divinity. And that's what must happen in our schools because we have our global responsibility. Everybody looks towards India because the whole world is worried about learning to live together. We can do it. The man-nature relationship can be best learned in schools in the initial years. most of our global problems have arisen because we have forgot to respect nature. That has to be restored. And who could do it? Is the teacher. I would like every teacher to remember, if he has to have a learning school, a sustainable school, to remember this term aparigraha, which Mahatma Gandhi has put in such a beautiful terms. Nature has sufficient to meet the requirement, to meet the needs of everyone, but not the greed of anyone. The whole world repeats and resonates this sentence. It should reverberate in our school. And that will make all the difference. I would also like our curriculum developers, textbook writers, to remember that we have such a strong philosophical basis, pragmatic basis for developing our children in initial school. Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore wrote that every child gets 2 bones at the birth. No discrimination of any type. Everybody gets it in abundance. And they are power of ideas, power of imagination. And he said our schools and school systems, examination systems, they knowingly, persistently impede these traits given by the nature. And when I read this, and I have been thinking on that, if ideas and imaginations are not nurtured and nourished, your cognitive capital will never be at the desired level. You cannot have a good research outcomes, innovations, entrepreneurship, unless until in the initial years, the ideas and imagination are encouraged, nurtured, and nourished. And if you do this, you will get a bonus. The bonus is curiosity will increase, creativity will increase, and these all are the major contributions to the cognitive capital of any nation. And I would also like every teacher to remember the 3 basic principles of Sri Aurobindo. Whenever we are working on any of the aspect of this, who said, number 1, know the child, what he knows, prior knowledge that he brings, from near to far. Everybody understands this. The second is, the mind must be consulted in its growth. This deserves to be analyzed, studied, and understood by every teacher, and most importantly, in the teacher education institution. You have to know the child, whom to teach. Unless until that harmony is established, things will not. This third sentence is the most important one. And that, to my mind, is something which every teacher education institution should definitely go deep into it. And once you go deep into it, your entire curricular of the teacher profession will change. The sentence is, nothing can be taught. Suddenly people would say, what are you talking? But the more you think about it, you find out, yes, everything can be learned. There are no limits to learning. Education is manifestation of perfection already in man. The oft-quoted Delos Commission report acknowledges it. Its title is Learning the Treasure Within. It's all within child. Teacher can assist, inspire, motivate, partner. And if this happens, our institutions will become, our schools will become the centers of activity. Everybody would be attracted. I am so happy that a point has been made that it is social responsibility. My school, मेरा स्कूल, अगर कम्युनिटी को लगे, समुदाय को लगे, लोगों को लगे कि मेरा स्कूल है, और अगर इस स्कूल में कहीं पर कोई एक गमला टूट गया है तो मैं भी इसको ठीक कर सकता हूँ, मुझे स्कूल में आने की सुविधा होनी चाहिए, मैं ये कर सकता हूँ। ये स्थिति तब बनेगी जब स्कूलों में, जैसे प्रोफेसर कृष्ण ने कहा, जो अध्यापक है उसको लगे कि मेरा स्कूल। हम में से बहुत से लोग इस बात पर गर्व करते हैं कि हमने इस विश्वविद्यालय से पढ़ा या इससे पढ़ा। वो एक गौरव का जो भावना है, उस भावना को हमें गांव में, स्कूलों में। मैं एक बात और कहना चाहता हूं, अभी 1 ही मिनट बचा है मेरे पास। इस समय कठिन परिस्थितियों में एक अद्भुत अवसर हमारे सामने उपस्थित है। सरकारी स्कूलों की साख लौटाने का ये अच्छा मौका है। अनेक कठिन परिस्थितियों के कारण बच्चे और उनके माता पिता सरकारी स्कूलों में बच्चों को ला रहे हैं, और अगर हम वहां का वातावरण और ठीक कर दें, हमने बहुत कुछ कर लिया, हमने बेसिक सुविधाएं बनाई हैं, लेकिन अगर वहां पर अध्यापकों की गिरी नियुक्त हो जाए, स्वच्छता की बात आ जाए, शौचालय की उपलब्ध हो जाए और सादा बारह बदल दिया जाए, छात्र अध्यापक अनुपात सही हो जाए, तो इससे बड़ा सुविधा इस समय कुछ नहीं हो सकती कि अगले कुछ महीनों में हम अध्यापक नियुक्त कर ले, हम ये कर ले, हम वो सुविधाएं दे दें जिससे कि जो माता पिता किसी भी कारण अपने बच्चों को सरकारी स्कूल में ला रहे हैं, उनको लगे हाँ हमने ठीक किया है। जो सरकारी स्कूलों की साठ 1955 में थी, 60 में थी, उसको वापस लाना कठिन कार्य है, लेकिन देश में शिक्षा की गुणवत्ता बढ़ाने के लिए, देश की संस्कृति से बच्चों को जोड़ने के लिए, देश के वातावरण से जोड़ने के लिए, मनुष्य और प्रकृति के बीच के संबंधों की जो दृढ़ता, संवेदनशीलता भारत में थी, उसे पुनर्स्थापित कर विश्व के सामने उदाहरण रखने का ये सबसे बड़ा मौका है। आगे के समय 3 वाक्य बड़े महत्वपूर्ण होंगे। पहला, यावत जीवेत अध्येते विप्रः, लाइफ लॉन्ग लर्निंग। दूसरा, लर्निंग टू लर्न, कैसे सीखा जाए नया वो। और तीसरा, लर्निंग टू लिव टुगेदर। दुनिया भर में जो चीजें हो रही हैं, अगर शांति की तरफ जाना है तो भारत इन 3 चीजों पर विश्व के सामने उदाहरण बन सकता है। इस अवसर पर मुझे अपनी बात कहने का मौका मिला। मैं बहुत अनुग्रहित हूँ शिक्षा मंत्रालय का, आदरणीय मंत्री जी का, अनिता जी का। और मैं फिर एक बार कहना चाहता हूँ कि मुझे डॉक्टर केशवी रंगन का जो भी स्नेह मिला है, उसके लिए मैं बहुत ही अनुग्रहित हूँ। धन्यवाद।
Thank you very much, Professor Rajput, for your very insightful remarks about the various aspects of the education and the education policy. Particularly, you are the one who is competent enough to really track the history of the evolution of this, whether it is from Costa Cortari's time or more recent past, because you have been involved with education over a long period, very experienced, and have contributed immensely and richly to this area. So I'd like to thank you for this very insightful talk, and I'm sure there is a lot to be taken from your talk with respect to the strategy they want to evolve for the NEP related implementation strategy. Thank you very much. May I now go to the next speaker? This is Dr. Anant Joshi, Jyoti. She is the principal of the Rishi Valley School, Madanapalle, Chittoor district. I would like to say a few words about her before requesting her to give the talk. She completed her PhD in English in 1995 and joined Rishi Valley School soon after as a teacher of social studies and English. Though familiar with Krishnamurti's philosophy, Dr. Jyoti says that she was not fully prepared for what unfolded in the next phase of her career as a teacher. It's difficult to say when the lines between the professional and the personal blurred and blended. Very nice way of sharing the thought. Teaching in Rishi Valley was not just a career, but it's a way of life, according to her. She took a short break from Rishi Valley, did her teacher's training in UK, and taught there briefly. Eventually, like a homing bird, she returned back to Rishi Valley. Dr. Ananda Jyoti.
Thank you, sir. Uh, I feel humbled to be in the presence of so many august people and the whole conclave. My warm wishes and respects to one and all of them. Because my time is short, I thought it is magical to be a teacher, an educator, and it's always a pleasure to be with other teachers and educationalists. And I would like to start. Could I have the PowerPoint presentation, please? And as the presentation is coming on to the screen, I would just like to say where I thought I would start. It is about the child or the teacher or anybody in this society. I think the primary thing about being a student is to be connected. So after the last meeting that we had, when I really thought about it, I thought the key is to be connected to everyone around. Quite often, education, I think, makes us somebody in an ivory tower. But I think real education is being connected to the world outside. And I would just like to take from a Krishnamurti quote, which says, the intent of schools, he would often say, what is right education? And he said, it is to equip a child with the most excellent technological proficiency and all that. But I would just like to concentrate on the last bit. I think what it means to be a student is to be a complete human being. That is to give the child, to give an opportunity to flower in goodness, that he or she is rightly related to people, to ideas, and to the whole of life. Because to live is to be related. So I would like to start from that premise and see how I'll not say I have explored. I think the school has taught me. The school has been here for many years, and I've really imbibed a lot from school. And I would just like to start from that premise. Next slide, please. So when we talk about what the implication of connecting with people with life is, I thought there are many aspects, but I would today like to just concentrate on three things. One is land and nature, the community, and one's own self. The next slide. When we talk about the next slide, please. Yeah, when we talk about connecting with land and nature, I think when you till the land, when you grow the trees, you will always respect life. And that is something you give to the future also. For example, we live in a lush valley. It has not always been a lush valley. In fact, when this school began, it was a barren hillside. But I think it's the efforts of so many people that today we are able to enjoy this. And that I think is the greatest gift that anybody could have given to the students of future. So if we are today experiencing or enjoying all these, I think it's the lush land which has been developed by the people before us. So the next slide. These are some of the initiatives taken, and in some way, I think we have been quite successful too. I don't know how and when it happened, but every child here is very respectful and also mindful of the way water is used. So water conservation is a way of life, and we do not see children wasting life either in the school or in the rural school which is next to us. And reforesting is also ingrained in the system of people. So I think you can go through the slide to know what it means. We live in a drought area. Rishi Valley School is in a rain shadow area, and there is hardly any rain. And therefore, when there are rains, we rejoice. And the water belongs to all of us, not just school or the buying capacity of the school. We are surrounded by farmers and shepherds. And I think this land, this atmosphere belongs to all of us. And there is some onus on us to preserve this water table, because it's scarce and it needs to be shared in a way with all of them around. And I think somebody in the past have, I mean, from the administration of the school, have thought about percolation tanks, and today we have around 7 percolation tanks around. This means a lot. You may not readily see the need for the use of it, but these percolation tanks mean that there is fodder for the cattle when there is drought. And that I think that the way our lives are connected is what I think makes the life of a child here very meaningful, because they're not just thinking about the books, about the subjects, but they're also thinking about these things, and it is ingrained in them about water, about conservation, about plastics, not using them, basically to love nature and be a part of it. Next, please. So I think this nurturing love for nature should start from the start. And here is a picture. All these pictures are taken from my colleague Shantaram. He's a naturalist, he's an ornithologist. And here, this I thought was a beautiful picture of how you actually look at a butterfly, because when you lose the butterflies, you lose the all else. And just to that child who held the butterfly, I think is a beautiful moment. And I thought I would just share that. Next one. Yes, one thing that happens is we do share this space with a lot of other beings, monkeys being the primary ones. And quite sometimes children do complain because monkeys have a way of littering the place, taking away your things. But the teachers, I've heard many teachers, not that anybody has told the teachers to speak in this manner, but many a teacher, I've heard them say that we are in the space of monkeys, not the other way around. So do not think about it as monkeys coming into our space. We have occupied the space of monkeys. I think this dynamically changes the relationship one has with the place, because we share this place with all the other beings, and it is not like we have propriety or ownership over this place. So that is what I think. And Krishna ji has also said about this in several places. His nature journal, for example, talk so much. And there are other naturalists too who talk about this love for nature. They talk about the scientific aspects also. But I would like to just take one aspect from this. If you hurt nature, you're hurting yourself. And if you do not preserve nature, we will not be preserved by it. I think at this time, at this moment, it's very important to be a part of nature and to love nature and to take care of nature. And that does not mean just watering or doing some token service. It means that we really build this into the bloodstream of our children. And I hope we are doing something of that kind. Next slide. So we had a poetry workshop. This is a toad, but the poem is about a frog. Sorry about the mismatch, but this again, usually people, especially young children, have this revulsion for living beings. But both this picture and the poem shows that they actually appreciate it. So to hold a toad without being repulsed or without fearing uh, is a beautiful thing. And the poem also talks about how closely the child, I think this was written by a child in class 7 in some poetry workshop, but I think it's very beautiful. The keen observation, the frog, wrinkled, moist skin, ripples like a wet sheet as it hops from pond to pond, home to home. Uh, I don't have to say more. I think the poem speaks for itself and is very beautiful. Next slide. I've just put the various animal life from here, but I would like to say one or two things. For example, the jewel beetle is really a jewel, and I think that is the one on the top, that bright green thing. And when you look at wasps, you're always thinking of how to shoo the wasp away. But to think that wasp also feels thirsty, and this I think is a beautiful picture of a wasp drinking water. Squirrels are always a delight. And when you suddenly accost a hare, you feel so good because it's such a rare sight, and there is also a rock agama here. But what I would like to draw attention is to that central piece, which is about a caterpillar. And our whole wall, I think, I am a house parent, which means there are some girls who live in, we call hostels houses here. And the walls, if you know these caterpillars, they infest the wall, and there are so many of them. And the response, I think, is to just sweep them away or burn them or do something to them. But it seems so sad because it was also the International Moths Day. And I did not mean to preach, but I just said in a few days, these will all be moths. Do we really want to kill them? I really thought they would, in a way, sweep them away, but they did not. And they did turn into moths a few days later. And that, I think, is very beautiful. That sensibility in the students that it's okay for the moths to be there on our walls. And to actually see them turn into moths, I think is a beautiful experience, because this is what I think teaches us that nature, yes, is a part of our life. Next slide. Yes. Whose home, who builds the home, who stays in the home, we do not know. For example, all these are almost from the similar area. I think the only fellow, the extreme right, has actually made his own home, which is a barbet. But if you look at that little chick of a myna or the parakeet or the owlet, they're all living in homes actually made by a woodpecker. And we have many of these coconut trees in the vegetable garden. And in each of these, somebody has labored. And that I am currently building a house. It's not about how much we pay the laborer or what they do, but I know that their labor has gone into making my dream home, and I'll forever be indebted to them. So when I look at these fellows merrily sitting in the holes made by other creatures, it's very nice. We all enjoy the labors of other people, I think, in one way or the other, and it's a great life lesson for students. We do go for bird watching in the mornings on Sunday mornings, and these are some of the things that children learn and imbibe. And that poem from Auden, I just put it there because it may make much sense with the next slide, because we have so much space and yet so many people are homeless. Now, if you look at this piece here, there is a bit of grass. That is the fourth time that the Munia, that is the little fellow on the left of me, which may be right of you, I don't know, has tried to build a home. And every time it has been foiled by one or the other, sometimes by the cat, sometimes by the monkey, but relentlessly has been building and building and building. And finally, he shifted to another place. Now, if you look at the other two birds, the one on the top is a pied-crested cuckoo who comes all the way from Africa to Rishi Valley. Not Rishi Valley, I think we are just on the way, but we see him in Rishi Valley. And he rides on the southwest monsoon wind. So when he comes here, we know that the rains are going to happen because he's ridden on that wind. So seeing the first cuckoo of the season is always like a celebration or a blessing. On the little fellow on the right with the yellow breast, I think is the wagtail, who comes all the way from Himalayas. To know that we know there are jet setting people, but these are jet setting birds, and to know that we are part of their ecosystem, not that we are a part of theirs, but they are also a part of our ecosystem, makes you feel so humble that somebody has come to the campus all the way from Africa or Himalayas or whatever. And we wait for these birds. We call them our winter visitors. Next slide. I could not but feel tempted to put this slide. This again, when Shantaram took this photograph, he was wondering why that peahen was not going away. He was just there. It's very rare for a peahen to be there. So he took his fill of the pictures and came to his office, and then he knew why. I think if you look very closely, she has her chicks there in the very at the very bottom. She has her chicks there, and that is why she was trying to guard her own chicks. So when there is life coming up on your own land, it's such a blessed feeling, I think. Next slide. Yes, the seasonal rhythms. This time, in fact, if you look at the flame of the forest, it's there only for 10 or 15 days. And some of us were quarantined at that time, and we thought we would miss the entire season. But luckily, some pictures did come. So we do have these lovely trees around, and I have a very poignant tale to share about it. In the pandemic, whatever has gone wrong, I think in terms of these blossoms, jacaranda, copperpot, duranta, they have been really resplendent this season. I remember 2019 March, we had sent away all the home much before that time because the pandemic had begun. And it was late in the night. I was walking and I had this sudden whiff of, I think for the first time in that season, I smelled the neem flower. And somewhere inside, neem flower for Andhra people also means the new year, Ugadi. And I thought maybe there is a new beginning. even when everything is looking desolate all around. So that is, I think, when you're tuned to the seasonal rhythms, and that is what we would like our children also to be tuned to, is to be in sync with nature around them. And that's a beautiful feeling again. Next slide. I take all these examples from Rishi Valley because that is where I've been teaching most of my life. I also interact with the local schools and other things. When I was first sharing some of these ideas, people were saying, is there something for the teachers to take? I'm sure most teachers do all these things. Nevertheless, I put it up there, bird watching, every backyard. There is something called a international, the great backyard bird count, and we always do that, and it is amazing how many birds are there in your own backyard. And our treks are always nature treks, so we have had in the past, not since the pandemic has begun, of course, sea trek, river trek, Himalayan trek, nature journaling. When you do that, you watch things around you very closely. And there are so many other things. Seasonal fruits, for example. Children know in which season they would get which fruits. So they will be looking for the mango season because that is very special in Andhra Pradesh, where we are. So instead of just going to the supermarket and buying all the exotic fruit, to wait for that seasonal fruit, to give um, respect to that seasonal fruit, I think is something. And also to calculate the food miles. Where has your food come from? That which is on your table. I think when that is there, you respect the food that is put on your plate and not complain about, oh, the same food again. And artwork is a wonderful way of looking at nature, kitchen gardens, biodiversities, all these. And talks by eminent ecologists, we've had so many of them. Vandana Shiva, Madhur Gatkul, Shekhar Dattatreya, John Singh, who I think has a tale to tell about every leaf and shrub and insect. And these books have also come up, Birds of Rishi Valley, Insects of Rishi Valley. And Snakes of Rishi Valley is interesting because this was distributed to all the villages so that people do not kill snakes but respect the snakes. I would like to stop. Anytime I'm running out of time, please stop me because I do not want to get into the people. So please say stop and I'll just stop. Otherwise,
Yeah,
I'll just.
we have completed our time limits at
Okay,
this.
I think we'll stop. We can share the PowerPoint.
Yeah,
I would just
maybe we
like to
could
say,
discuss it further. Yeah, right.
yes, I think we'll stop
Thank-
here. Thank
Right.
you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ananda Joshi. All I can say, if I have to ask, we summarized in one line. You have fully justified that teaching in Rishi Valley is not just a career, but is a way of life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We go to the next speaker in the session, Dr. Arnab Singh. Dr. Arnab Singh is a committed director, principal of Nehru World School, Ghaziabad, an alumnus of King's College, London, and Hindu College, Delhi University. He is passionate about innovation, technology, entrepreneurship, and igniting young minds. A proponent of distributed leadership model, he firmly believes technology may not replace teachers, but teachers who use technology effectively will replace those who don't. Dr. Singh is the chairman of the FICCI Arise for UP West, a member of the School Standard Setting Committee under the National Education Policy 2020, and also a British Council School Ambassador. He frequently participates in TV debates and speaks on various national and international forums. Dr. Singh.
Thank you very much, sir. It is a great honor to be a part of this conversation. And as I was waiting for my turn, I realized that pretty much everything I had planned to say has already been said. I will attempt to share how this is set in the context that we work in. अन्नपूर्णा जी ने जब शेयर करा तो वो स्टार्ट कर रही थी कि लाइफ लॉन्ग लर्निंग एक्सट्रीमली इम्पॉर्टेंट है जिस एजुकेशन सिस्टम में हम वर्क कर रहे हैं. फिर डॉक्टर कसुरी रंगन सर आपने ही बात करी holistic approach key and how we need to be future ready for the children who are in our care. You also talked about disruption and silver lining. I am a firm believer of that as well. And resonating with what Dr. J.S. Rajput spoke on reflection and social responsibility, I think when I speak, some of these tenets would resonate with what has been said already. But before I say what I say, I would want each one of us who's on this call to imagine a classroom where the teacher is teaching geography, and this is the first lesson of the topic rain. And before anybody opens any book, she's asked a question to her children. She says, imagine that there is a company that has created a system in which they can sprinkle a chemical on top of the cloud and they can make it rain whenever and wherever. We don't know what they're sprinkling, so what is the environmental impact of it, but they can make it rain. And of course, there are various types of customers who have come to this company, and who should this company sell to? That is the question she's asking. And the choices that she's giving to our children is, should she sell it to the farmers who want to have more rain so that their crops go more? Or should this be given to cities who want to use rain to reduce the pollution in the city? Or should this go to hill stations? They want more snow and thus more tourists. Or to a desert town where they want more water for drinking? Or should this be sold to nobody, because nobody should have the right to interfere with nature? And this is the discussion that happens before any learning from the book is happening in the classroom. I would imagine a classroom like this would have some very excited children giving a point and then learning to support why they're saying what they're saying. And how I wish that every classroom would start with children excited about their learning. But truth be told, not all classrooms are exciting at the start of it, let alone at the end of it. Though I firmly believe that all of us are trying. इंडिया एक बहुत बड़ा देश है और बहुत स्पेक्ट्रम में ऑपरेट करता है। कुछ ऋषि वैली जैसे स्कूल्स हैं, कुछ वो भी स्कूल्स हैं जहां पर एक मल्टी एज क्लासरूम है और 2 टीचर्स 8 क्लासेस के बच्चों को डील कर रही हैं। सो आई एम वेरी श्योर कि हम सब लोग अपने अपनी कोशिश कर रहे हैं to solve this riddle of learning in our own ways, to build people that the world needs, who have reflected on their learning and adapted, who would want to show courage and grit. And these students who will be the change makers of tomorrow, those students who would lead India to where it would go. I will use my 10 minutes in sharing how we are solving this riddle of learning at Nehru World School through these research methods, with our understanding of how brain works in different ages, how we feel all of this learning has to be solved with empathy and with growth mindset, where there is no concept of somebody is intelligent and somebody else is not. It is only a question of, I can do this and I can't do that just yet, but if I stick on it, then I will. Where our teaching philosophy basically says we want to protect strugglers from discouragement and protect achievers from complacency. I request the admin to please share my slide. At Nehru World School, we believe that we would want to have this learning experience happen through a real world manner, where learning doesn't happen in silos, it is happening together. And if learning truly has to happen, we need to create a love for learning in our learners. And that is the only way we are going to be able to create lifelong learners. I resonate with Annapurna Deviji. This is extremely important for all of us learners. And to me, learners in school are not just students. They are the teachers, they are the non-teaching staff, they're everybody inside the school. And if I extend this to what Professor Kasturi Rangan had talked about, this is holistic, this is the entire community altogether. So this real world approach to quality and sustainable school is what I'm here to speak about. The next slide, please. At Nehru World School, we believe learning is happening in a circle of enablement of learning, and then we need to build upon this learning, and then eventually we consolidate the learning that has happened. And it is not linear. It is happening concurrently at different levels. Now, to enable students to learn, to get them ready, be interested in what the teacher is going to talk about, there are various ways that we can do this. The one that works for me as a teacher most is a simple strategy called think, puzzle, and explore. What I request of my students is, think of what do I think about this topic, what puzzles me, and how can I explore more about this topic. Before I move forward, people who are listening in, if there is any of these strategies that I'm sharing with you, if they interest you, feel free to get in touch. We'd be more than willing to share everything that we've learned about these strategies with you. So coming back, so what do I think, what puzzles me, and how can I explore more? There is also a full-blown program that we run in the school now in the pandemic, going back to what Sir has spoken about, the disruption that was caused. That helps us prime our learners to capture their curiosity, to actually trigger their memories, or in other words, work on their schema and the parent link. What we did was, next slide, please. We asked our children to work on mathematics at their home in their own pace. And the expectation was simple. See where you find math around you and make a 1-minute video and share it with the school. And children from around the world started sending their entries. They were seeing mathematics and triangles in coat hangers, in a watch, in patterns in their bed sheet. They were seeing volume in the kitchen. They were actually seeing maths are all around them. And the math teachers were saying, well, we can clearly see children are coming more excited to the maths lesson. Well, they are also sharing what they learned on their own as they were going through this. So these are some ways in which we enable or get the child's brain ready for learning. The next slide, please. Once we've reached this stage, we want to now build upon. And when we build upon, we would want these kids to explore, express, and extend their learning. One simple way we do this is get two children together. They both read subsections of the text, and then they explain it to each other and cross-question each other on their learning, thereby taking ownership of their own learning. You can also do this in a group, works quite well. And how students make sense of their learning and then extend it is something that we also experience with a program called Startup Superstars. The next slide, please. In Startup Superstars, every child of the school from grade 1 onwards has to run a real business. We got this idea from the startup initiatives of the government of India. And so what happens is every child comes up with a business idea. And then within their classroom, they do a voting of which business would this classroom work on. And once they've decided, the school funds each of these businesses a startup capital of 20,000 rupees. The kids run this business across the year. And at the end of it, if they have made a profit, they will return the capital amount back to the school. If they've made a loss, they would just report a loss balance sheet and the school will not ask for the lost amount. But what we are seeing is children are really getting excited about the ideas that they're moving forward with and how they need to work in teams to run these businesses. Before the pandemic, we had this entire run. 31 businesses were done. 26 of them reported a profit of about 34%. And the 6 that did not, these kids were able to reflect on why did their businesses not run, and they're actively looking forward to coming back to school and restarting this. Going to consolidating their learning, the next slide, please. It's extremely important that we teach our children to reflect on their learning, teach our teachers to reflect on their learning, and to share and celebrate with the wider world, thereby concretizing their learning. I would like you to imagine this once again. I'm speaking from learning visit I had in the school. So I'm standing in the corridor. This teacher of mathematics has just finished teaching maths, and she was teaching the concept of functions, the plus, minus, multiply, and divide. And the question on the blackboard is, if the answer is 40, what is the question? If the answer is 40, what is the question? Now, this question could be what is 20 plus 20? The question could be what is 80 divided by 2? But this teacher has given an open challenge to students who can come up with the most complex question. And you can see this entire classroom busy working to create the most complex question, to which answer is 40. The teacher is, of course, getting the revision of the functions, but she's got the student buy-in to this. We also run a program in the school where we ask our children to reflect. This program is called I Can. The next slide, please. So in I Can, students, again, this was born in the pandemic where there was disruption all around. So we wanted children to become proactive with their thinking and not just be the blame gamers to say this one should do this, that one should do that. We wanted our children to be empowered to feel an important part of the country that they're in. And this program was I Can. मैं क्या कर सकता हूँ? सो बच्चों ने जब वीडियोस बनाए तो वो बना रहे थे वीडियोस ऑन कि मैं कैसे सस्टेनेबल सिटीज को कंट्रीब्यूट कर सकता हूँ, मैं कैसे चीजें रीयूज कर सकता हूँ, रिसाइकिल कर सकता हूँ। एक बच्चे का वीडियो था कि मैं कैसे स्टार्टअप्स को हेल्प कर सकती हूँ और कैसे हम अपने एरिया में ज्यादा क्लीनलीनेस कर सकते हैं, हम पेड़ पौधे उगा सकते हैं। सो हम एज स्टूडेंट करंटली मैं 8 साल का हूँ या मैं 12 साल का हूँ, मैं मेरी करंट सर्कमस्टेंस में क्या कर सकता हूँ। आई फील this reflection is something which is extremely important. This professor who was teaching me teacher development in 2004 had said, experience does not teach you anything. Reflecting upon your experience does. And to teachers who are listening to this, I repeat this for you. Just teaching in the classroom for 10 years or 20 years doesn't help your students till the time you don't reflect on it. After the lesson, when you ask yourself, what is working well? Why is it working well? Or what is my student finding difficult and why is it that this is happening? Or when the next time I do this lesson, how do I adapt this? And I think as teachers, when we have this this belief system amongst all of us where we help each other ask these questions and then find answers, perhaps our students will have a better shot at learning. To end, I would want to recollect this one time I was reading to my daughter at night. She was a 6-year-old and she asked me this question. And she says, Papa, what is that one thing that only you can see and nobody else? Now, I didn't have an answer, and I asked her to give me one. And she says, Papa, it is your dream. Only you can see it. But there is also a dream that I want to see with all the teachers of this country. And that dream is to create lifelong learners, learners who are in love with learning, and citizens of this country and of the world that are out there to contribute. Thank you very much for listening to us and for giving us this opportunity to talk on this forum. Like I said earlier, if there's anything that we are doing that resonates with you, write to us and we'd be very happy sharing all of our reflection and also all the mistakes that we made in the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Arnav Singh, for this very interesting presentation. I think you enriched us with many of your ideas. Innovation, technology, entrepreneurship, all part of the igniting the young minds. So coming out of your own years of experience and of course your own creativity and originality, which is essential for passing on the excitement to the students. Thank you very much and congratulations for the type of things that you have been giving for the benefit of the new generation. Thank you. I'll go now to Sudha Penoli. She is the Vice Principal of the EMRS Kalasi Dehradun, Uttarakhand. She had a journey as a teacher, principal, started the career as TGT English in 1991, served in the interiors of Uttarakhand Hills for 14 years. 2004 was a turning point, according to her, opted for residential setup under government of Uttarakhand. 2010, she got an opportunity to serve tribal community through ambitious scheme of the government of India, EMRS. 2018 got responsibility of vice principal and the first recipient of the National Teachers Award under EMRS category. and she has her perspective on teaching as a profession. And this includes, of course, teaching not merely imparting information, but holistic development of the child. In fact, I'm reading this out, even though it would be a part of her talk, but it's so significant what she has written here. I thought I should do this, even as you hear her. NEP 2020 recommends overall development of the child, to recognize the potential of the child and to prepare the students as a responsible citizens. Very nice presentation on your background. May I request you, Srimati Sudha Painali, for your presentation and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you, sir. Namaskar to all our esteemed guests and all the worthy viewers connected virtually. I feel much honored to be an active part of this program today. Eklavya Model Residential School, better known as EMRS. It is an ambitious scheme of Government of India under Ministry of Tribal Affairs, especially meant for talented but underprivileged students of the tribal community of India. The motive is to provide quality education to all the tribal students in order to bring them to the mainstream and to make them a responsible citizen, a good human being, so that the child can serve the society, the nation in a better way. So I would, a lot had been shared about the vision, the new frame of education for the current scenario. So as the time is going out, so I would straightway focus on the practices we have initiated at EMRS Kalsi Dehradun. So kindly share the screen, please. As far as my own view is concerned, what education is actually, it is not merely imparting, teaching is not merely imparting information, because we all know, next slide please, education is at everybody's handset today with Google Meet. So what is the role of a teacher then? It is to provide quality education for the holistic development of the child. Undoubtedly, enrichment of knowledge is one of the main part of it, but it is also linked with the moral values, with value education, skill development, and grooming of the child's personality through exposure at different stages. I would like to tell all the viewers that the students we deal with all are from tribal community, and 50% of the students are first generation learners. So to bring them all in the mainstream is the first and foremost challenge of we people. Next, please. So I would like to share some of the practices we have initiated at Eklavya Vidyalaya, and we have seen tremendous results of these innovative practices experiments. Some of them are theater in education, skill development, tribal museum, birthday garden. Next, please. The first very important project was initiated in the year 2010 when the school was established in Uttarakhand. Under this project, each and all are boarders. It is a co-educational school. So all the students are hostelers. So we started this project, and under this project, each and every child is inspired to plant a medicinal or fruit sapling on the occasion of his or her birthday, along with the parents, the guardians, the classmates, housemates, teachers, and all. And the child nurtures it for the period of 7 years. From class 6 to 12th, child stays here and they nurture their own plant. And in order to motivate more, every year on the occasion of annual function, we select two best nurtured plants, one that of boy and a girl, and those students are awarded by the chief guest, and the result is very, very tremendous. I feel very proud to share with you all that presently more than 250 medicinal and fruit plants are there in our Eklavya birthday garden, including Rudraksh, which is very rare. And this year's most exciting fruiting is Rudraksh only. I too have seen it for the first time, and it includes chandan and neem and avla and sweet mango, orange, mango, sweet lemon, and so many all. And still it is in continuation. The next step we have forwarded with the name Herbal Garden also. Next, please. There are some of the photographs related to this birthday garden. Next, please. You can see the yield of a single day. The students themselves have brought it out. In the picture, you can see that they are planting the saplings. Next, please, also. And with the fruiting also, when they see that they have planted the sapling themselves, and now it has started to really, as we say, the sweet and sour are the results of hard work. Next, please. Yes, our next innovation is theater in education. CBSE, NCERT, they also promote it. It is very helpful in giving exposure, especially in case of shy and introvert students. It grooms up the personality of these kind of children tremendously. We have seen the result there, and it also helps in the betterment of academic performance of also that of the child. Next slide, please. We have, under this project, the tie-up with the theatre group. We have established our own repertory in the school by the name Eklavya Rang Mandal. You can see the brochures of different plays. All are very eminent and literary plays. And on the occasion, 3 or 4 times in a year, we conduct workshops for students where they learn on the stage and off the stage, both kinds of skills related to theater. And on the occasion of annual day, one Hindi and one English play, the literary one, is staged by our students. And when the first generation students, they perform the Blue Umbrella by Ruskin Bond in English. तो माँ बाप का भी और हम टीचर्स का भी 56 इंच का तो सीना हो ही जाता है, द वे दे परफॉर्म दियर. और चाहे वो मन्नू भंडार जी का लक्ष्मा हो, चाहे असगर वजाहत जी का दिन लाहौर ने व्याख्या, ये बच्चों ने बहुत कॉन्फिडेंटली एंड आउटसाइड द स्कूल ऑल्सो दे आर स्पेशली इन्वाइटेड फॉर परफॉर्मिंग दीज प्लेस. नेक्स्ट प्लीज. Our next innovative experiment, these are some of the scenes of the stage for different plays. You can see here. Next, please. Another our innovative experiment is skill development for enhancement of creativity of the students. As I said, that one more challenge for the teacher is to channelize the energy of the student in a positive direction. As we all know, children are immense source of energy. The thing is how to channelize it in positive direction. As I said that all are hostelers, after the exams are over, students are free, but the teachers are busy in evaluation and result making. So how to keep them engaged? So we planned one program. We started conducting different workshops as per the taste, the aptitude, the hobby of the child. And presently, continuously for last 10 years, we are conducting this. Now we have given it the name Mega Workshop. In the month of March, we invite experts on different fields, and they train, next please, next slide, the students in different arts, skills, how to use, next please. These are the exhibitions students have shared there. Next please. Apart from this, we have focused on traditional, local and folk arts also. Next, please. Here you can see the bamboo making. We have invited especially one peasant from the tribal area, and he taught how to make baskets out of bamboo. Then traditional folk art, which is called dhol and damau, जो उत्तराखंड का जो ट्रेडिशनल ढोल बजाने की कला है, वो extinguishing almost. नए बच्चे नहीं सीख रहे हैं. Generally एक इस तरीके का misconception था कि this art is perhaps not related to the high class society and all. और इस भ्रम को तोड़ने के लिए हमारे ऑनरेबल प्रिंसिपल सर डॉक्टर बडोनी, he initiated himself and he started playing dhol himself. And there was a tremendous change. Students now, they do not shy and they come forward, especially one trainer we invited once. और अब बच्चे हर जो त्योहार के मौके पे अपने ट्रेडिशनल ढोल को बहुत प्राउड के साथ बजाते हैं. नेक्स्ट प्लीज. यस, एक और हमारा इनोवेटिव एक्सपेरिमेंट्स है और इसको शेयर करते हुए मैं इमेंस प्राउड फील कर रही हूँ. एस्टैब्लिशमेंट ऑफ एकलव्य ट्राइबल म्यूजियम. जैसा कि हम सभी जानते हैं कि ग्रेजुअली विद द एडवांसमेंट ऑफ द सोसाइटी, आवर ट्रेडिशनल कल्चर एंड हेरिटेज, इट इज extinguishing gradually. People are new generation is forgetting it. So in order to revive it and to link the future with the past, we started one small project in SST, in junior classes first. And we asked the student to bring one article from their go down, which is out of dated now. Next slide, please. And name it what it this particular article is called in their own language and what for this article is used. And we were very happy to see the students showed zeal and enthusiasm for this. First they said, next slide please, these are the guests watching it. These are some of the items and some of them are very rare. और बच्चे लेके आए, they were allotted marks and grades for this and still next slide please. ये कुछ आप पॉट्स देख रहे हैं, ये मेजरमेंट के डेली यूज में जो गांव में आज भी पुराने उसमें इस्तेमाल किए जाते हैं, वुडन है, लेदर के बने हैं और व्हाट दे आर, शेर है, पांथा है, दही रखने का है. बच्चे राइटअप भी लेके आते हैं, इसको कहाँ क्या कहा जाता है. और नेक्स्ट प्लीज. इसमें बहुत अच्छा, नॉट ओनली स्टूडेंट्स बट देयर पेरेंट्स हैव आल्सो शोन इंटरेस्ट. ये आप देख सकते हैं हमारे यहाँ आउट ऑफ द 5 ट्राइब्स एक ट्राइब है भूटिया उत्तराखंड की और कारपेट वीविंग उनका अपना ट्रेडिशनल जो है आर्ट है, स्किल है. तो ये उससे जुड़े हुए बच्चे, इतनी तरह की तकलियां हैं, ये कॉम है, किस तरीके से फिनिशिंग की जाती है, कैसे उसका एक स्मॉल रेप्लिका बच्चे बना के लाए हैं. और कंटिन्यूएशन में हमारा ये जो प्रोजेक्ट है, जैसे बच्चे आते रहते हैं, लाते हैं, स्पेशली गिफ्ट करने आते हैं books and costumes and ornaments and so many things. More than 400 articles we are having in our museum at school level. Honorable Minister for Tribal Affairs, respected Munda ji himself has seen it and appreciated it a lot. Next please. इसके अलावा ये कुछ हमारी मेन प्रैक्टिसेस है, ये आप देख सकते हैं, और कलेक्शन बच्चों का, और जब वो अपना नाम इसमें लिखा हुआ देखते हैं तो दे फील प्राउड and eager to bring more articles to us. Next please. और ये सब स्कॉलिस्टिक तो अपनी जगह पे है ही, पैंडेमिक में हमें आईटी का सहारा लेके करना पड़ा और साइड बाय साइड को स्कॉलिस्टिक में हम लोगों ने जब ये काम किए, स्कूल 2010 में एस्टेब्लिश हुआ था और उसके बाद जब फर्स्ट जनरेशन लर्नर बच्चे स्पेशली इनवाइटेड टू परफॉर्म इन फ्रंट ऑफ ऑनरेबल प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया और एक फर्स्ट जनरेशन बच्ची हमारी शीतल जब पूरी कैबिनेट और ऑनरेबल प्रेसिडेंट सर के सामने अपनी टीम को, अपने स्कूल को इंट्रोड्यूस करती है, तो कहीं पर ये फील होता है कि कोई कोशिश शायद हमारे द्वारा भी की जा रही है, हमारे स्कूल की, हमारी जो टीम है कुछ कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि बच्चे इस लेवल पे आ सके. नेक्स्ट प्लीज. इसके अलावा और भी बहुत सारी प्रैक्टिसेस हैं. डॉक्टर अनुराग जी ने जो शेयर किया, हम लोग भी अपने विद्यालय में इस तरह की प्रैक्टिस है. डॉक्टर सिंह ने बोला बर्ड वॉचिंग एंड ऑल, सारी चीजें हैं, छोटी छोटी और एक्सपेरिमेंट जो कुछ आते कि जस्ट लाइक डिक्शनरी वॉचिंग, पीपल फील शाय, इवन एडल्ट्स एंड ऑल. सो एक एग्जाम्पल कोट करने के लिए हम लोगों ने जगह जगह काउंटर बनाए हैं. नेक्स्ट. और to maintain the dignity of labor. Next please, the last one. Every Sunday and all the holidays are meant for श्रमदान. और उसमें केवल बच्चे ही नहीं, पूरा स्टाफ, हाउस मास्टर, टीचिंग स्टाफ, नॉन टीचिंग स्टाफ, मैं खुद और प्रिंसिपल सर सबके सब मिलके ये श्रमदान करते हैं और बच्चे, आप यू कैन सी दे आर एंजॉयिंग. तो these are some of the practices and thank you so much for providing this platform and thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a very, Pariyala, it was a very interesting presentation. and particularly considering that the tribal background you highlighted with respect to an Ecalabia Schools Road. And it's really fascinating and insightful that many new ideas one can get from this kind of a thing. I should also mention that in the NEP 2020, we did take a special attention to the tribal regions. There was a part of underdeveloped geographies and things like that, and it made some very specific recommendations on these matters. I'm very happy to see that here is a real translation of those ideas into concrete terms on the ground. So congratulations to you for this. We are now running out of the time, so I think there is a question of answer session that is put here, and there have been 8 questions that have been selected through, of course, my government portal. So this is a selected set of questions. Since the time is limited, hardly 5 minutes, probably we can devote to this part of the session. I request that I will choose a couple of questions and ask one of the panel members to comment on it in terms of what they think about that question. And maybe a second person also could comment on it. And similarly, I'll take a second question and do the same thing and try to complete it in about 5 to 6 minutes so that this can be covered, but in a limited way. So I go for the first one, which is how is the e-learning and new methods of education going to change the structure and roots of our education system? I think it's a very broad spectrum question in one sense. So may I see whether Professor Rajput has a view on this particular question, whether you would like to share with us.
Sir, मैं पूरा सुन नहीं पाया. I couldn't listen the whole thing.
The question is, how is the e-learning and new methods of education going to change the structure and roots of our education system?
They will provide alternatives in the long run. Once we are through the impact of the pandemic, they will provide alternatives. Even otherwise, if there was no corona, we were marching ahead on that. Now it is not only the textbook, teacher and school and the learner. Now there are several alternatives available to the child, and this has to be acknowledged by the teacher, by the curriculum developer, by everybody. And therefore this baste ka boj, that type of thing can be reduced. And when there are alternatives, obviously, sir, the child will be able to create more interest, and perhaps he can also broaden his or her horizon. This is what I would say.
Okay. Dr. Arnav Singh, would you like to add to this any of your comments on this?
Yes, sir, I would. मेरे को जो समझ में आता है, आईटी एक ऊर्जा की तरह है. जैसे कि आग एक ऊर्जा है, वो आपको जला भी सकती है और वो आपको ठंडी रात में वार्म रख सकती है, वो आपका खाना पका सकती है. तो आईटी को हमें ऊर्जा की तरह देखना चाहिए. जब पहली बार प्रिंटिंग प्रेस बनी, तो एजुकेशन बहुत सारे और लोगों तक पहुंच पाया. फिर उसके बाद जब रेडियो आया, तब हमने देखा, मेरी मदर बताती हैं कि गाँव में एक रेडियो था और हम लोग वहाँ जाके और देखते थे और समझने की कोशिश करते थे कि ये कैसे चलता है. फिर ये क्रांति टेलीविजन के थ्रू आई और अब हमारे पास में इंटरनेट एक अगली क्रांति है जो हमारे पास में अवेलेबल है. मुझे पर्सनली ऐसा लगता है कि हम शायद बिल्कुल लास्ट के दूर दराज तक के उस एरिया में इंटरनेट को शायद पहले पहुंचा पाएंगे इन कंपैरिजन टू हम वहां पर स्कूल कंस्ट्रक्ट कर और ट्रेन्ड और मोटिवेटेड टीचर्स को पहुंचा पाएं. तो अगर हम टीचर्स को साथ में ये टूल दे दें कि टीचर्स की आवाज सिर्फ उनकी क्लास में बैठे हुए बच्चे ही नहीं सुन रहे हैं, बल्कि और दूर दराज में बैठे हुए बच्चे भी उनकी आवाज को सुन पा रहे हैं, तो हम इस इंटरनेट को बहुत अच्छी तरीके से यूज कर सकते हैं. बट मेरी ब्रीफ में आपने पढ़ा था, आई डोंट थिंक टेक्नोलॉजी विल रिप्लेस टीचर्स, but teachers who use technology effectively might replace those who don't. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Another question that I picked up is, how is the environmental education, sustainability education, and citizenship education related? May I request Dr. I think Ananda Jyoti, would you like to comment on this?
Yes, you could call me Jyoti. In fact, in a previous discussion also this had come up. And environmental education right now, yes, it does cover a lot of scientific data, and that is perhaps necessary. But it is also, there is a kind of fear in it about pollution. All that is happening, one does not deny it. Our own environmental teacher would often say that if you teach children to love nature, then perhaps they'll preserve nature better. And there is not that much focus on loving nature, preserving nature. There are, but not enough. I think it tries to cover a large spectrum and give a taste of everything, but there is more fear and doomsday predictions of what will be done. Maybe a lot more on what we could be doing. For example, getting used to the rhythms, getting used to and observing whatever is around one's space. uh, for example, when children see the night sky, and we have many children coming from the city, and perhaps in the city they are not able to see night sky. But just looking at the wonders of night sky, I still remember one of my houseboys saying, I was so afraid of the dark.
Yeah.
But now it's so lovely, those kind of things.
Thank you, Dr. Jyoti. Thanks a lot. And maybe would you like to add, Ms. Sudha Pauli, to what this question raises from your experience?
Yes, sir. Exactly. Environmental education plays a very, very important role. It creates a sense of belongingness to our local environment. And when the child feels this belongingness, he learns more. So the more we are close to nature, the more the person learns, and the things the child wants to explore, the inquisitive nature, all these things helps a lot in grooming the personality of a child. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think we are now at the final point in this session. I have to wrap up as a chairman. All I can say is it's a very, very interesting session. Lot of good ideas. I think even at this age, my mind gets kindled with the kind of presentation that have been made and the ideas that have been propounded. And so I can imagine how the young minds are going to take advantage of this kind of a thing if we bring it into a institutional mechanism across all the schools, the rote learning reduction, I have more experiential experiences from the school education, and even introducing vocational education as a part of the school education in the final stages. All these have got ideas which are embedded in the type of presentation that you made today. So I really appreciate that. I take this opportunity also to especially thank Professor Rajput for being a presenter for this session. Very interesting inputs that he could give as expected. And I would like to thank also the Secretary, the Ministry of Education, the School Education and Learning, and Dr. Anita Karwal. She has always been in the forefront of organizing such innovative sessions to further the ideas and further the progress of this implementation of the policy. And I would like to thank especially the chairman of this session for guiding us and giving us the expertise with respect to her own experiences on the related matters. I thanks once more everybody for this participation, and thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. It was a privilege to have you as the chairman of this technical session. I also take this opportunity to thank Professor Rajput, Dr. Ananta Jyoti, Dr. Arunav Singh, and Ms. Sudha finally for the kind of insight which they brought into their presentation into the nuances of quality in education and sustainability issues in education. We now come to the concluding part of this technical session, and we have with us the director of NCRT, Dr. Sridhar Srivastav, and the Secretary of School Education, who would be speaking to us. I would request Dr. Sridhar Srivastav to give his remarks.
Thank you, sir. Honorable Minister of State Education, Secretary, School Education and Literacy, Chairperson of the session, Dr. K. Kasturi Ranganji, Padma Vibhushan, the lead presenter, Professor J.S. Rajput, Padma Shri, other speakers on this occasion, and all others who are connected with us for this session. We had a very momentous time when we came out with any new release today. And Madam, you emphasized on the reskilling and redefining the job roles so that the child's coming out of school can contribute significantly to the society as a global citizen. Since the last Shikshak Parv, Madam, last year, NCERT has played an active role during the pandemic situation under the aegis of Department of School Education and Literacy. We came out with many teaching learning resources such as alternative academic calendar, Pragyata guidelines, and Nistha for the secondary school education. And today also, when we saw the new launches, which in the form of UDL based ISL dictionary, talking books, Nistha 3.0 for FLN with the support of all contributing stakeholders. Surely, sir, I would like to remark that Honorable Prime Minister gave his guiding words towards when he mentioned that India would be seeing its 100th year in the year 2047, and in the span of 25 years, all these efforts will surely bear fruits, and we will be seeing the outcomes of all our efforts. Sir, as chairperson of this session, you mentioned your concerns about foundational literacy, community partnership, and curricular transformation. This Nistha 3.0 has tried to answer all these questions together. Professor Rajput was mentioning about a teacher transforming a person, and he emphasized about character formation. In this Nistha 3.0, we are trying to make efforts so that the teacher is able to reflect that what he is teaching, why he is teaching, and what behavior modification that the teacher intends to achieve out of his interventions and efforts. Sir, we have tried to do value addition in the Indian Sign Language Dictionary, and surely it will help the diverse group of stakeholders, students, teachers, educators, researchers, parents, etc. And it will help in easily understanding and use of words in ISL in their day-to-day living, and thereby improving the learning of Divyangjan. NCERT has contributed in the Nipun Bharat framework also, and it has played its role. And surely the efforts will be coming in more from the institution side. Sir, today, as we all know, that we have embarked upon a journey of about 10 days, where we will be seeing different webinars on topics from pedagogy to subject pedagogy to system enactment and enhancement and learning to the cause of re-imaging vocational education and school education. Sir, we as institution NCERT look towards all these days where we'll be getting the experiences from the field, from the school side, from the teacher side, sir, and we will be surely looking forward as an institution to utilize all these experiences in the process of enacting national curriculum framework that we are involved in with ministry. So with this word, sir, I conclude here, and I thank for giving me this opportunity of expressing my remarks. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Srivastava. We have with us Madam Anita Karwal, who is the Secretary of School Education and Literacy Department. And she has been steering this department in one of the most challenging times that this department has seen. During the time of the pandemic, when the schooling system has been disrupted the challenges of maintaining learning continuity through various platforms, digital initiatives, using television channels, using radio networks, talking to the states and using the community to maintain learning continuity is something that requires a lot of innovation, lot of creativity and lot of determination. So she has been steering this department through this kind of a challenging time, and I would request her to kindly give her remarks. Ma'am.
Thank you, Santosh. Honorable Minister of State, Srimati Annapurna Devi ji, respected Kasturi Rangan sir, respected Rajput sir, and distinguished panelists and participants. Firstly, I want to say I'm really humbled by the address of the Minister, Dr. Kasturi Rangan, Dr. Rajput, and the experiences that were shared by the teachers. In fact, it was a huge eye-opener. Bringing in entrepreneurship in grade 1, connecting the students to nature by actually bringing them out of the classrooms. Having a museum in a school, I never heard of. In fact, while Sudhaji was discussing this, we were just wondering why can't all schools do this? It's creativity which has actually gone out of all the boxes that we have ever imagined. So I'm really humbled. Thank you so much for this presentation, and thank you for such a brilliant start to the Shikshak Parv. And I think I would just like to wrap up in a minute by saying that what has come out today is that we are looking at connecting learning to real life, connecting learning to our culture, to our knowledge of this country, to our traditions, to our literature, to our language, to our people and society. And that should become the whole idea of education. We are also looking at schooling as building capacities, not only of teachers, which we keep talking about, but also of the community, also of the school system, of the whole educational administrator system perhaps, and also looking at it as building capacities of parents to actually participate hand in hand with our teachers and schools to bring in quality and sustainable education. And the whole idea is that at the end of the day, the student should become a very curious student, whose curiosity has no bounds and which leads to a lot of creativity and critical thinking. So I think I'm going out of this, the first technical session today with a lot of insights from the presentations today. And I want to just thank all of you that this was brilliant, and the Shikshak Parv has started off to a great start. Thank you once again. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you everybody for joining. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm going to say thank you.
What?
You can say thank you. Now you are unmuted.
Eh? Why?
You were
Namaste.
muted before.
Oh, namaste. Okay.
Okay.